scrambling because I just got off of a tough client conversation, which we turned around, but it was...
Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of the Terrific Tips for Business. I am Terry Watkins, your host and Chief Idea Catcher over at SpinFrogs. Why is it Terrific Tips for Business? Well, you can't spell terrific without Terry, so it just made perfect sense. I am so excited to be here with you all today. Thank you for hanging with us, for tuning in and watching us live on YouTube. And today I have the one, the only, the most amazing serial entrepreneur, Frank Clark, with me. And for those of you, you're excited, huh? That was a good
I'm excited. Bring it on. Let's go.
That's right. So Frank is a visionary leader. He's a multiplepreneur investor, and he's had proven business and finance skills that has been absolutely transformative for the work that he's done. He's a co-founder of, oh goodness, Frank, I shouldn't even say Cytosorbents, which this is the one we were talking about. It's the blood purification system. Correct. So we're super excited to delve a little bit deeper into that. But this has been approved by the FDA and the EUA in April of 2020 to treat, you guessed it, COVID-19. So he was one of the co-founders of that product. He's also a co-founder, partner, and investor in Game On Golf Center, which is a high-tech golf driving range business model and real estate development company out of Westchester County, New York. And he's an executive coach and business consultant who loves supporting startups and business owners, professionals, doctors, and other healthcare practitioners to identify and improve upon their best practices for sustainable growth. Now you know why he's here. I have been honored and blessed to get to know Frank over the last 6 months, and he's just an absolute rock star. So I'm so glad he's with us today. Yay. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you so much. You're very kind. I appreciate that. It's very, very nice of you.
Yeah.
So this is the golf range behind me, by the way. This is a picture from the range on a beautiful day a few years ago. And, it doesn't look like a high-tech range from this angle, but we have ball tracking technology on the other side of the range. That would be this way on the picture. That allows you to track all of the metrics on hitting your ball. So the launch angle, the distance, the spin rate, all those kinds of things. It's a top tracer based range, which is the same technology that they use on Topgolf, if anybody's familiar with.
Your audio just cut out on us, Frank. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now. Okay. Try again.
I was just talking about the range is the picture behind me. So it's
yes.
What makes it a high-tech range is we're using top tracer technology, which allows you to track ball flight and statistics. And what we also have, what we've added this year, is automatic teeing system called Power Tee, so that when you hit your ball, a new ball automatically pops up, so you don't have to bend over, you don't have to move your feet, and it makes it easier for you to keep your feet set, especially for training.
That's pretty cool. So the purpose of these metrics, like with anything else, if we don't measure it, we can't get better, right?
Exactly.
So you measure all of the components. So for those people who are trying to be at least semi-pro golfers, or they really take their golf game seriously because they want to win,
yes.
This is a great tool for that.
Golfers are serious, exactly. So, and a lot of golfers are also business people, so they also appreciate the metrics. So
Yes.
It's a way to, over time, get immediate feedback rather than just watching the ball and see where it lands. You can see, like I said, things like launch angle, total distance, flat equivalent carry, club head speed. I don't know if that's in there, but there's about 12 different metrics that you can look at. And then when you make little adjustments, you can see how those adjustments, affect you with real live numbers in real time.
That's super cool. So I want to tap into this a little bit and ask, you have so many different things that you've thought of, co-created, invented. Where do you get this, where do you get these ideas? How do you capture these ideas? Because they're so vast and different from each other. And yet at the same time, they're changing lives, all of them in some way or another. So how did you do that?
So when I started my career, I was a math major, computer science minor, and I gravitated toward programming initially and then ended up on Wall Street. So when I was on Wall Street, I was not a reader. I was a math major for a reason. I just hated to read, and I thought it was a waste of time, and just I had some bad experiences with some English teachers, so I was kind of like anti-reading. I was more about experiencing life, right? And what I learned as soon as I got into Wall Street is that I needed a mentor. Mentors were not coming out of the woodwork to find me, so I had to turn to books to find my own mentor, right?
Mm.
And one of my favorite mentors or teachers is a guy by the name of Jim Rohn, who has a quote, which is "Leaders are readers," right? And I believe that and leaned into that in a big way. So I get a lot of my ideas by, just reading books. I was on a Clubhouse chat yesterday with a guy who was giving strategies for how he read 160 books in a year. And I could really resonate with that because at one point, I was reading like on a Saturday, I'd read 3 or 4 books in a day, right? Because I was just trying to learn as much as I could and soak up all the wisdom that I could to, advance my career.
So are you like physically reading the book, or are you audio listening to the book? And have you found a difference in how you absorb the information from one or the other?
So great question. We talked about that yesterday on the call, and the answer is both. So I listen to books, and I read physical books, and I read books on Kindle. It's basically creating the opportunities so that when I have downtime or time that is available to read, I can make the most of it. So that might be on the subway between stops. I've got a physical book with me, or I can read a book on my phone. Or it could be while I'm driving and I'm listening to a book, right? And when I'm in my car, I tend to listen to books, so I'm making productive use of the time. Gotcha. And some books are better when they're actually read out loud, like we were talking about. Bruce Springsteen's autobiography, for example, is a fantastic book, and if you get the audio book, he is reading that out loud. And
wow, Bruce actually reads his own autobiography? Oh, that's fun.
So I was on a call on, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, with Sean Callaghy from Unblinded, and he had an excerpt from that audio book with Bruce Springsteen talking about after Clarence Clemens died, how he auditioned his nephew Jake and how he conveyed the importance of of knowing the material and really becoming immersed in the material, because he was replacing an icon and a legend, and he had to know and understand what was at stake, not just for the band, but for the audience. And was he up to the task of filling those shoes from the perspective of what it would take for the audience and for the band to accept him in place of this legendary icon who was his uncle?
Wow.
It was a lesson in leadership that Sean used to demonstrate to people what was at stake. And it was because, Bruce recorded with such passion that book. So sometimes from audiobooks, you can just get a whole different level of meaning than you get from reading a physical copy. So some audiobooks are recorded by, voiceover people, but when you get a book, an audiobook that's read by the author, it can be a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I find myself gravitating towards more to the fiction novels and the audiobook version, because I find myself not paying as much attention to it.
Right.
And ends up being kind of a background thing. I remember enough of it to talk about it in a book club, but I'm not like trying to apply it in my life. It's just a fiction book. Whereas the business books, I feel like I have to physically have it so I can like make notes in the margins and highlight things and just engage with. I write in my books. So I can never resell my books for anything because I write in all of them.
Behind me on my real background is a wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling bookshelf. So I've got books everywhere. I've got books in my bedroom. I've got books in storage.
So what has been in all of the books that you have read, and I think we've talked about this offline, but what's been the most impactful book in your life that you've read?
So I'll tell you, one of the earliest books I read in terms of business and becoming success in business was by Harvey Mackay, which was How to Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. Ooh. And in that book, he really highlighted in a lot of stories the importance of building your Rolodex or your network, right? People don't say Rolodex anymore because it's no longer a tool that people use.
Yeah, all the millennials listening are like, roll a what?
Building your contacts in your phone, or in other words, the power and the value of your business and your career is the power of your network, right? So if I can pick up the phone and reach out to somebody who's a business leader or a leader in some other realm, I can get things done a lot easier than if you don't have that same level of contact. So to the extent that you build up your network over time, it creates more abilities for what you can accomplish in your life and in your career.
Yeah, and I want to tap into that a little bit too. When I first started, I taught myself sales when I first started, and when I first started networking, I taught myself networking. And really, networking I have found is relationship building. So, do you have any tips for helping people to build a strong network? Because I think it really comes down to having good relationships with people.
It's about good relationships and it's about good communication. So I also had to teach myself how to sell. I mean, I learned how to sell initially from, as a kid. My dad had a business selling antiques, but so I just learned a little bit when I was, from a very young age. Then when I was 14 years old or 15 years old, I worked at the county fair selling airplanes. And basically the guy who owned the business had just this sales pitch, and I heard him do it 20 times in a row. So I memorized it pretty quickly. And I was like, oh, this is what sales is. But then, when I started reading all these books, a lot of the books said, okay, well, nothing happens in business until a sale is made. And, the most successful people are great salespeople. So I'm like, all right, I better learn how to become a great salesperson, and dove deep into the sales literature. So I taught myself sales before I was a salesperson, when I was still essentially an analyst or whatever, because everybody was highlighting the importance of sales. So some phenomenal sales books out there. I mean, I started out, I think, with people like Tom Hopkins and Zig Ziglar and Joe Girard, who is the record holder for Guinness Book of World Record holder for most cars sold in a year. And he broke that record year after year. That was a phenomenal book. It was called You Can Sell Anything to Anybody. But
Awesome.
Sales, as you said, it's good communication. So as I dove deeper into the sales literature, it was like, all right, yeah, there's all these closing techniques or strategies around that. But at the end of the day, it's about building the relationships and about building strong relationships. And to do that, you have to learn how to communicate effectively.
Yeah. So what's a key component that you have found for effective communication in the work that you've done? Because you have so many different irons in the fire and things that you do. Does your communication style have to vary on each of those components as well?
Oh, absolutely. So there's so many elements of communication. And what I found to be the most powerful and the most influential for me was when I really dug deep into NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. So I first became aware of neuro-linguistic programming when I was reading Tony Robbins' book, Unlimited Power. And he talked a lot about it in that book. And then I later went and trained in person with Tony. And at that time, he was still teaching NLP in his Unleash the Power Within seminar.
Wow.
So I got to do a deep dive with Tony Robbins, and then he offered follow-on training. He had something taught by one of his trainers called Skills of Power, which was like a deeper dive into NLP. And then he did more at the time in his life mastery with NLP. He's, I think, gone away from that these days, and he teaches what's called neuro-associated conditioning, but it's kind of a derivative of it. But then I went back and I was like, I'm a big believer in going back to the roots. So when I learned something, I'm like, well, where did he learn it from, right? Yeah. So I found out where he learned about NLP from with the two guys who developed it were Richard Bandler and John Grinder. So I went and started learning from and reading their books. And then I went and I trained in person with them and learned, all about how they developed it and deeper dive and better skills and working on myself to become more effective. And ultimately, I wasn't trying to become a therapist or a trainer or the next Tony Robbins. I was just trying to become, better at my craft of business and entrepreneurship.
Sure.
So I took those communications and applied it to the sales process. I applied it to managing employees. I applied it to writing letters. I applied it to developing brochures or websites and things like that.
That's fantastic. And I love that you really touched on not just finding your mentor, but finding your mentor's mentor. So you're taking it to that next level and really diving into and fully immersing yourself kind of in this study, not for necessarily the purpose of getting involved in that industry, because I'm sure at this point with all of the deep dive education you've done, you could easily like get involved in these individual industries, but for the purpose of just personal development so that you can turn around and apply it into your businesses. What, Frank, is probably the best takeaway or the best piece of advice that you could have given your younger self? If you were able to go back in time right now and talk to your younger self, what would that piece of advice be based on this?
So, I would kind of tell myself to like do what I did, but start sooner. Read more, become a better networker sooner. The things I had to give up along the way, socializing, television, etc., I would have given up sooner, right? Mm-hmm. So just start sooner. We were doing a seminar yesterday teaching people how to invest in the power of compounding and financial freedom and developing skills around that. And one of the biggest lessons and most important lessons when you start to understand the math is start sooner, right? Mm-hmm. When you start saving sooner, there's a huge difference between when you start saving when you're 22 years old versus 30 years old. Yes. And it massively affects the amount of capital you have available in retirement, just that 8 years, even if you're starting to save like $50 a month or $100 a month, because that money compounds over time. Well, in the same way, your knowledge compounds over time. So when you start sooner, then you've got more, more of a timeline to grow that business or to grow whatever it is you're trying to do in life, whether it's a career in politics or education or, not-for-profit, whatever it is trying to do. If you want to create results, if you want to teach more children or feed more people or whatever it might be, start sooner, right?
I love that.
This is your time. Do it now. They say the Chinese proverb is the best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today, right now. So if you haven't done it yet, whatever it is you're trying to do it now.
I love that. I love that so much because I've heard that Chinese proverb and it is a philosophy of the compound effect. And Darren Hardy wrote the book, The Compound Effect, and it's true. Like all of our patterns of behavior have a compound effect. So if we take a minute and we reflect on what am I compounding towards, and then we ask ourselves, is that the direction that I want to be going, or do I want to be going over here? And if I want to be going over here, what are the steps that I need to take to have a compound effect in that direction? Because everything we do compounds on itself. Our money compounds on itself. Our knowledge compounds on itself. Our physical health compounds on itself. That's why they say there's no one key. There's no one key to growing your business through marketing. There's no one key to weight loss. There's no one key to learning anything faster. It's a compound. It's a multiplicative,
Absolutely.
if I can say that word, effect, where you do multiple things and they add together. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 100 or 1 + 1 = 1,000 because you've been able to stack the deck in your favor. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, we had a health trainer on our webinar yesterday, and great guy, Uchi Odiatu. Look him up. He's a dentist, and he teaches health and fitness for dentists, but for everybody. And the guy's in amazing shape, but he says, people say, oh, you must work out 3 hours a day to get in that kind of shape. He's like, no. He's like, I don't have time. I'm a dentist. I'm working full time. He's like, I'm lucky if I get 30 minutes in. But I do that 30 minutes and I make the most of that 30 minutes. I do high intensity interval training. I do, burpees or whatever. So that by the end of that 30 minutes, I've gotten my work in. So it's like, knowing strategies that can maximize the use of your time. Now that could be for fitness. It could be for finance. It could be for business, sales, marketing, education, whatever it is. But there are people who know how to do stuff better than you do. So find those people and learn from them. Read their books, watch their YouTube talks. Go to their webinars, go to their seminars in person, connect and network with other like-minded people at those seminars, and you're going to get to where you want to go because you're immersing yourself in that body of knowledge, whatever that body of knowledge is for you.
Absolutely. And I love that, finding ways to maximize your time. It's a time hack, right? It's just like our bodies have body hacks we can do, our minds have mind hacks we can do. Well, of course, there's time hacks we can do. That makes perfect sense. One of the time hacks that I've heard, and I don't know if you apply this as well, but I've heard people who are trying to learn something new, or they're trying to practice a new language, for example. They're maybe listening to that new language while they're washing the dishes or vacuuming the house or going to take the dog out or whatever. And so they're actively immersing some part of their brain in it while they're doing something else that needs to also be done. So they're having that compound of time. Have you heard that too?
Yeah, my brother is a linguist and just a language genius. So I've been watching him do this since we were kids. And we had to take a language class in junior high and high school. You start in junior high, right? Mm-hmm. So he took Russian, okay? And then he talked me into taking Russian when I started 2 years later. But by the time I started taking Russian in 7th grade, he was also already added French and Spanish. So by the time he was 9th grade, he was studying Russian, French, and Spanish. And then in 10th grade, it added German and Latin.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, he had a full course load of just foreign language. That's amazing.
Yeah, and this is as a 10th grader.
Wow. Well, and they say our brain when we're young actually absorbs language quite well. And so the more languages you can get in before the age of 7, the actual more bilingual you can become.
Correct. So yeah, if you have kids and you want them to be exposed to language, then like Terry was saying, immerse them in it. Have it playing while they sleep, right? So that they get used to the sounds of something like Chinese or Japanese or Arabic or whatever it might be that you think might be useful to them later in life.
Super cool.
But immersion, so I'm a big believer in immersion while you sleep as well. So I used to listen to like self-hypnosis tapes while I slept that would help me reprogram my mind for sales success, let's say, or for fitness or whatever it might be. And I still listen to those things. Because while you sleep, your subconscious is at rest and it's open to programming. And so when you program your mind deliberately rather than accidentally by whoever you meet or whatever happens to your day or whatever you happen to be watching on Netflix, but you make it intentional, say, okay, I really want to master languages, like you said. So I'm going to listen to this Arabic tape every night for 6 weeks or 6 months until it's like sinking into my subconscious. That actually works. That will make a difference. And you'll start to find yourself, unconsciously knowing stuff without knowing where it's coming from because you've been, immersing yourself.
So I have a question based on all of that, because that's so good. The question is, do you ever get entertainment time? Because it feels like if you're being so immersive and continuously growing yourself, is there room for entertainment as well? Or do you have to kind of sacrifice entertainment for a period of time? And what is that period of time?
So I do get entertainment. So one of my top values is fun. I really am a huge believer in fun, and I believe in creating resource experiences because those resource experiences translate to other contexts. So what do I mean by resource experiences? So I like to challenge myself, and I like to challenge myself with physical challenges, right? So I like to try new adventurous things. So I've jumped out of a plane, I've flown a hang glider, I've done scuba diving and jet skiing and snowmobiling and all that kind of fun stuff. I went snowmobiling this winter, right? I skied this winter. I've gone snowshoeing and hiking this winter. And my downtime, I need to recharge my batteries. I like to be out in nature, and I like to be doing stuff that's like fun exercise type of stuff, whether it's, like I taught my son to snowboard this winter.
Fun.
Yeah, I need that in my life. I went for a hike yesterday. I had some downtime between clients, and it was 70 degrees or 65 degrees up here in New York. So I was like, I need to take advantage of this weather and go outside. So I went to, my favorite local woods, which is 2 miles from my house, because I go there because during the pandemic, it's a lesser known area, so nobody goes there. So I usually have, hundreds of acres to myself.
Nice.
I can walk freely without a mask and not worry about seeing anybody. I bring a mask. If I do see somebody, I can cover it up. But that downtime, that recreation time is essential, because if you're just like all business all the time, you're going to burn out. You're going to give yourself a heart attack. You're going to give yourself cancer. If you're just like, I'm going to work 7 days a week and I'm going to do this every day and I'm not going to have any time for myself, you're going to burn yourself out. You got to take time to take care of your body. You got to take time to take care of your spirit, your emotions, your mind, right? You got to feed your mind, and all of that stuff will translate into other contexts. So when you master something like rock climbing, for example, right? You're challenging yourself and you're learning to overcome obstacles and difficulties. Yeah. And you're learning to focus and you're learning to problem solve. And when you get into a business situation, that problem solving or that overcoming obstacles kicks in, because it's like, oh, this is nothing compared to climbing that, 510A. That was much more difficult than this. I got this. I can get through this. So that's what I mean by resource experiences. When you create I've got the golf range behind me. I mean, if you're a golfer and you set your target that you want to get your handicap down by 5 strokes or whatever it might be, that is a challenge. That is goal setting. That is problem solving. That is metrics. All of those skills translate to business, but you're doing it outside in nature and having fun with your friends. So you're getting social, you're getting physical, you're getting mental health and well-being. All that translates into other contexts.
Absolutely.
Recreation. What is recreation? If you break it down, it's recreation. So you're recreating yourself.
So good. Ooh, I love that. That was so good. Thank you. Recreation.
I'm sure I didn't make it up. I probably read it in a book or heard it from a...
Well, it's the first time I've heard it, and I've had 100 conversations with industry leaders across the world. So yay. Yeah. Thank you.
That could be Jim Rohn or Les Brown or Tony Robbins or somebody else. But I love that, because that's exactly what it is. And for me, hey, any excuse to recreate is a good excuse.
It's a good excuse. I'm like you. I like to be outside as well, and be walking, be in nature, find the places that people aren't going as much, and just being physically active. It releases endorphins to be physically active. Sunlight gives you vitamin D. All of these things help to balance the ecosystem inside your body. And when your body itself is balanced, then your brain becomes balanced, and then you're able to be a better leader. Such a great tip, Frank. Thank you.
Yeah, and you touched on something there I want to dive into a little deeper, which is endorphins and hormones in general. Simon Sinek, a fantastic speaker and author. He's got like one of the top 10 TED Talks, Start With Why, but he did a talk called Leaders Eat Last. He wrote a book, Leaders Eat Last, where he dives into the hormones of leadership, and he has some phenomenal stories about this and how to activate the right kinds of hormones such as endorphins or oxytocin that lead to better leadership characteristics than just being driven by dopamine and cortisol, which create more stress.
Yes. Awesome. I'm going to have to go find that one, because I actually haven't listened to that one of Simon Sinek. I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan, read the book Start With Why. Awesome. I teach his Start With Why program in my Propel program that I have for small business owners, because we've got to dive into our why. If we're not clear, if our why doesn't move us, then it's not going to move anybody else to work with us either. It has to move you. And I find that his methodology is one way that's really effective at finding the why that moves you and moves others towards you, which is what's really the key when it comes to marketing effectively, I have found.
Absolutely. And like part of immersion, like, so Simon Sinek, I watched his TED Talk, I read his book, and I've seen him in person, right? And I've done that with other people like Les Brown and Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn. I've met these people in person, gone to their seminars and sat in the audience and talked to them in between and asked them questions that were on my mind. So when you immerse yourself, don't just like buy a book and read a book. It's like, how can you get a fuller experience? Well, everybody's on YouTube now. Everybody's got podcasts now. Everybody's doing, nobody's doing live workshops now, but you can at least get live webinars. And when the pandemic is over and people are back to normal, then yeah, go to seminars in person. Meet the other people who are, studying and learning from the same thing. It's incredible who you can meet at some of these workshops and webinars. I've met extraordinary people.
Absolutely extraordinary people. That's one of the biggest takeaways that I've had in doing some of these immersion events myself, is the people that you get to meet from all over the world are just absolutely phenomenal, heart-centered individuals who are really making a big impact and difference in the world around us. So I love to surround myself with those people, and it's just been a blast to find those people at those places.
So
Hey,
this
Frank.
conversation right now, I'm only talking to you because we met because of Sean Callaghy and because of our friend Joseph Varghese, who got us connected through that community, right?
Yes.
And I know Joseph for 10 years now, but I met him through the Tony Robbins community.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't gone to the Tony Robbins community, gotten into Tony Robbins, 28 years ago now, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Isn't that amazing? Yep. And if I didn't go to the Unblinded event in January of 2019 before COVID hit,
exactly,
it wouldn't be happening right now, because I wouldn't have necessarily even been moved to have the podcast again. Like, I've relaunched this podcast a couple of times. So Lord only knows, I might not have even had the podcast. So yeah, it's absolutely incredible, the ripple effect that you can trace back to when you see and get a taste or a glimmer of success and people and relationships that you're able to develop through these unique networking opportunities. Frank, speaking of a unique networking opportunity, this has been an incredible conversation so far, and we have some unique opportunities coming up. But before we jump into those, what's the best way for everybody listening to get in touch with you, to follow you, to engage with the stuff that you're sharing, you're creating, and the impact that you're having on the world?
So the best way to engage with me now actually is Clubhouse. I've really kind of dived into Clubhouse, which is an app. It's only on the iPhone platform. But if you want to engage with me directly, I'm frequently on Clubhouse. You can follow me on Clubhouse, and you can join one of my clubs, which is either the Power Team or Startup Con Live. And I'll be doing events and building content out of that platform. The other best way to get in touch with me would be either through Instagram or LinkedIn, and those profiles are also on my Clubhouse app. But if you look for me on social media in general, on Facebook, I have a picture of me, because Frank Clark is a very common name. So there's a picture of me on the Times Square, 60-foot billboard, because I got to ring the opening bell at NASDAQ with my company, with Cytosorbents, the blood purification company.
Awesome. You got to be on the Jumbotron. That's so cool.
I got to be on the Jumbotron outside of NASDAQ. It was awesome. So
that's amazing.
I don't know if I'm ever going to change that picture, although I've changed it on Clubhouse for Startup Con Live now, because I'm trying to promote that brand and build that community back up.
Super. And speaking of Clubhouse, we are at the point of the conversation where I would like to transition this to Clubhouse and open up the conversation for everybody who's listening and questions that they might have, or just a conversation around this topic, so that we can all continue to grow, inspire, and be better together. So I want to invite everybody to join us over on Clubhouse here in just a moment. And before we go, if you've been tuned in thus far to the Terrific Tips for Business on YouTube or in one of the other podcast networks, I want to thank you for being part of my network, being part of my tribe, and listening to these conversations. Please share this with a friend, like, subscribe. Hey, comment below. Let me know what you want to hear, because I want to make sure that I'm bringing people to you that support and serve you in the things that you need. That's what I created this space for. Terrific Tips. It's fun because it's Terry, but at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about the people that I get to highlight on this stage. It's about the conversations that we get to have that get to support you in your personal development, in your journey, so that you can have all of the success that you deserve. And so I want to know that this is serving you. So comment below questions or ideas or things you would like to see more of. And if you're interested in getting in touch with me for being featured on this stage, my contact information is right here on the screen. You can Terry at SpinFrogs.com, or you can follow me over on Clubhouse too, at SpinFrogs, of course, because it's SpinFrogs. So I would love to connect with you and engage and see how we can support each other, because we cannot get out of this life alone.
Absolutely. If you want
We
to
need
go
other people.
far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you need to build a team.
Yes, we need other people. We need other people's knowledge. We learn faster through other people. We don't have to struggle and be frustrated and fail as hard, as frequently, because we have other people who've done that before us. And if we can tap into that knowledge base, that's going to save you a lot of time, money, frustration, and energy, and allow you to just go further faster. So that's what it's all about. Frank, thank you. Thank you for all of the wisdom today.
No, this was a lot of fun. And so we're going to continue the conversation now on Clubhouse. So
That's right.
Do you want to start the room over on Clubhouse?
Yep, I'm going to go start that room on Clubhouse right now. So for those of you listening who have Clubhouse, pop on over there so that you can join the conversation. And I'm opening the room once it cooperates with me right now. And I will see you over there. Thank you all for tuning into YouTube, and we'll see you on Clubhouse.